We've always loved this idea of Australia as a classless, egalitarian society. It's kind of part of our national brand. But what if I told you that underneath that cherished myth, a deep, powerful divide is splitting the country in two? It's a schism that explains our politics, our cities, pretty much everything. So let's get into it.
And at the heart of all of this is a question that I think hits home for millions of us. Is the great Australian dream, the whole idea of a fair go, where if you work hard, you can get a house and build a good life, is that dream at risk? Well, we're about to see how two very different Australias are pulling that dream in completely opposite directions.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll define these two emerging tribes. Then we're going to take a deep dive into the world of the anywheres, and after that, the somewheres. We'll see how their worlds literally collide in our biggest cities, and then we'll wrap up with the big one. What does this all mean for the future of the country? Now, to really get our heads around this, we're using a really powerful framework from a British writer named David Goodhart. He came up with these terms, the anywheres and the somewheres, and they describe two groups of people who just have fundamentally different ways of looking at the world.
This slide really lays out the basic difference. For anywheres, your identity is something you achieve. It's built on your education, your career. They're mobile, they're cosmopolitan, and their values tend to be progressive and universal. Now, for somewheres, it's the opposite. Identity is ascribed, it's given to you. It's rooted in your town, your community. They value tradition, and their worldview is first and foremost local. As you can see, these are just two completely different starting points for how you see the world.
So let's kick things off with that first group, the anywheres. Think of them as the big winners of our modern, globalized, knowledge-based economy. An anywhere's identities is really defined by their achievements. The degree from a top uni, the career in a portable, high-skill job like finance or tech. Their values are progressive and outward-looking. They're passionate about things like climate action and multiculturalism, and they really do see themselves as citizens of the world. So their community isn't so much a neighborhood as it is a global network of other professionals just like them. And their geography totally reflects this. Anyways tend to cluster inside what's called the latte line in our big cities. Think the inner east of Sydney or the inner north of Melbourne. Politically, their priorities are a direct match for their values, climate action and integrity in government. And this has fueled a huge shift away from the old major parties and toward the Greens and those teal independents we've heard so much about. Okay, now let's flip the coin and talk about the other Australia. This is the world of the somewheres, the people who are often seen as the keepers of what some might call the real Australia. As somewhere's identity isn't something they achieved, it's deeply tied to place. Their suburb, their local footy club. Their values are all about stability, practicality, and a powerful belief in a fair go. These are our tradies, our miners, our retail workers, the backbone of the real, tangible economy. And they're much more likely to have a trade qualification or a TAFE certificate than a university degree. Geographically, you'll find somewheres in the outer suburbs, the regional centres, and rural towns. Their social life revolves around those local networks, family, the school PNC, the RSL. And politically? Well, they are absolutely crucial. They're the swinging voters who decide every single election. And their vote isn't driven by big, abstract ideas. It's driven by what's happening at the kitchen table, the cost of living, and whether they've got a secure job. Okay, so we've got these two very distinct tribes. Now let's see what happens when their worlds collide. And the main battlegrounds for this are, you guessed it, our major cities. Sydney is maybe the starkest example you can find. It's a genuine tale of two cities. You've got the globalized, professional, anywhere world of the inner city and the eastern suburbs. And then you've got the sprawling, often struggling, somewhere heartland of western Sydney. And look, this isn't just about culture. It comes down to cold, hard cash. This number is just staggering. In some parts of western Sydney, more than 40% of a household's income is just gone, straight to the mortgage. Just think about that. That's a level of economic stress that completely changes what you care about and who you vote for. Melbourne tells a pretty similar story, but it's often framed as this big clash of priorities. You've got the progressive anywhere capital in the inner city, which is focused on social and environmental issues, and it's rubbing right up against the somewhere mortgage belt in the outer suburbs, where, let's be honest, economic anxiety is the #1 issue day in, day out. So the result of this deep social divide is a massive, and I mean massive, political realignment. The old loyalties are just breaking down. Both the Labour and the Liberal parties are fracturing because they're trying, and often failing, to appeal to these two groups who want completely different, sometimes opposite things. And this chart, wow, this really highlights the educational split at the very heart of this new political map. Just look at those wealthy, inner-city seats that went to the Teal independents back in 2022. In those electorates, 55% of people had a university degree. That is more than double the national average of 26%. That's not just a gap, that's a chasm, and it's where the new political battle lines are being drawn.
So this isn't just about who wins the next election. This is really a battle for the soul of the nation. It's a fight between two fundamentally different visions for what Australia, the lucky country, should even be.
From the Anywhere perspective, the path forward is crystal clear. They see a future for Australia as this modern, progressive, renewable energy superpower, and they get incredibly frustrated by what they see as a stubborn, backward-looking resistance to change that's holding the country back from its real potential.
But from the Summers perspective, that message sounds completely different. When they hear the word transition, they just hear unemployment. They feel like they're being lectured by an inner-city elite that has no idea what their lives are actually like. And as that dream of a secure life feels like it's slipping away, the Anywhere focus on what they see as symbolic issues, well, it can feel like a total slap in the face.
And so that brings us right back to where we started, this Anywhere Somewhere divide. It's not just some political headache. It's a deep, dangerous stress fracture in the very foundation of our national promise, the Australian dream itself. So what are the stakes here? Well, if the Anywheres win and lead the future, they risk alienating the majority of the country and fueling a lot of angry populism. But if a Somewhere-led future wins, we risk economic isolation and a failure to adapt to a rapidly changing world. Ultimately, what's needed is a bridge, something that can connect these two very different worlds. Which leaves us with the ultimate question, doesn't it? The lucky country is now home to two very different, often opposing worlds. The single greatest challenge for Australia this century might just be figuring out if one nation can actually find a way to bridge them.